I have to say before the international community that it is fully unfair to blame President Duque for the assassination of some former members of this terrorist group. However, I see every day President Duque making greater efforts to eliminate these killings. And the government day by day inform to many people that trend. And I hope that the president could win this battle. But we need to destroy narco trafficking. While narco trafficking exists, it is very difficult to get peace in Colombia.
Thank you, Mr. Uribe, former president of Colombia. Now we will turn to Claudia to react to some of these. Claudia, how do you think and why do you think all these issues are interconnected with people, planet, and sustainability?
Thank you, Geovanny. That's a very pertinent question. The reality, as we have heard today in the discussion, is that the threats that we face today are non-traditional. They're not the same that we saw maybe 50 years ago in the world. So it's a cycle. We have environmental degradation that creates poverty, that drives conflicts related to access and distribution of resources, that affects the human rights situation and the situation of defenders, that affects security. Climate change affects security and drives migration, and then that generates tension at the borders. President Uribe, for example, was just mentioning that you should not fight with your neighbors, you should keep good neighboring relations. And part of the work that we have to do to address these challenges that we are facing today that are all connected is confidence building and having a seat at the table for people to be able to participate constructively, but using the institutional mechanisms that exist when it comes to the decision making with regards to these issues. When you talk about tax reform, for example, if you tax the wrong goods, you're going to have a consequence on the environment and you're going to have an impact on climate. So it's all about balance.
Thank you so much for sharing those insights, President Uribe. At President Biden's Climate Leaders Summit in just a few weeks ago, a pledge was made regarding the Amazon, and support was announced for the regional effort led by Colombia, Chile, Costa Rica to increase renewable energy capacity to at least 70% by 2030. How do you see Colombia's progress on this and Colombians supporting?
A lot of Colombia is making a lot of progress in this topic. At the moment President Duque finishes his government in August coming year, Colombia will have 14% of the electrical generation sources from solar and eolic energy. This administration is making a great effort. This administration is confronting with all the determination the cut down of the primary jungle in our country. But we consider that it is very important to eliminate narco trafficking, because in Colombia, for 1 hectare of coca crops, it is necessary to cut down 2.5 hectares of primary jungle. President Duque is doing well in many aspects of the environmental issue. He's totally committed for Colombia to reduce the emissions, and he's very optimistic and very determined to get these aims done.
Thank you, President Uribe. Claudia, what do you think are the greatest challenges Colombian people currently face regarding sustainability, and how does it impact livelihoods in the region?
Thank you, Geovanny, for that question. And I think that the biggest challenge Colombia faces in this area has to do precisely with finding the right balance between the economy and environment and the needs of the people. So being able to support and identify those pilot initiatives that can provide livelihoods to people by using economic incentives, for example, for conservation, and at the same time trying to prevent the challenge of land use change that can be linked to narco-traffic, as it has been mentioned, but to other economic activities. So I would say the incentives need to be in the right place, citizens' concerns need to be at the center, and more programs that address in an interrelated fashion the issues of livelihood that permeate to the social agenda.
Thank you. Speaking about security and livelihoods, President Uribe, you promoted a globally acclaimed initiative focused on park ranger families. Only in its first decade, the program benefited more than 120,000 families. Can you tell us about it, and why do you think it is relevant?
When I proposed this idea, I was governor in my province in the year 1995, and no one understood this proposal. We have to pay to preserve the jungle? Oh, this is a crazy idea. And I implemented this program as governor. And in the year 2002, when I was elected president, I proposed this project to the European countries, to the United States, and to the technicians in my government who were in charge of the budget. And every people gave me the impression that they did not understand the idea. Step by step, this idea opened ways and was accepted. At the end, it was accepted by United Nations, and we reached a huge number of families in this activity. They were paid by the government under the certification from the United States, from the United Nations, that they were complying their duties. We have to preserve the natural resources. We cannot say to the peasant of Brazil, you have to stop cutting down the jungle. You cannot convert the jungle into grass. You cannot convert the jungle into soja without giving him or her an alternative source of income. Therefore, green tourism, solar energy, eolic energy, and paying to them for preserving the jungle, the rivers. It could be very important ways to preserve our environmental resources. Latin American countries have 50% of the primary jungle of the planet. The vast majority is in the Amazonian region. We have an obligation with all the planet to preserve the resource, but all the countries have the obligation to help us in how we are going to collect the resources to pay for the preservation of the jungle. Latin America have 50% of soft water of the planet. We have the obligation to preserve for the well-being of the planet all these sources of soft water, but we have to pay for the preservation of natural resources.